Miss Cantor is here to tell us how two potentially warring disciplines can work together.
Okay. I'm going to share my screens now. Just an explanation. I've been in quality and regulatory in medical products since 1992, beginning of 92. And it's been an interesting ride. So I have personally worked in 7 small companies. 4 of those were in medical devices and pharma and biologics, testing lab, and 13 years on and off. I like them, I don't like them, with 3M and all of their medical and healthcare divisions. And then I've been consulting about 9 years. So very interesting journey. And I do like working on the science. So this is a great opportunity. I am a visual person. Okay. I do wear hearing aids. I think there's something wrong with my brain. As we'd say in the South, I'm slightly touched in the head, but I don't process as well from an auditory perspective, but it's great for auditing because if I ask the same question, if I ask a question and I ask it again, it's not necessarily because I'm trying to grill you, but if I get a different answer, then I know there's something to look at. So it helps me. I process photographically and have visual memory, and that helps me as well. So I preface that with why I've put my slides together the way I did. And in thinking about how design and regulatory can coexist in so many small companies, both of them are combined, regulatory and quality. So I have incorporated quality in this presentation as well. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to share the screen. And because, as I said, I really like to process visually. One of my key helpers in helping me get along with new teams, doing things remotely and having to be the good cop, bad cop is using humor. And I have a very dark sense of humor. So apologize. I don't think I have anything that offends anybody here. All right.
It's a feature, not a bug.
It's a feature. That's right. It's a feature, not a bug. All right. Teaming for success. So I wrote this around teaming. And we will get to the crux of suggestions, but I just want to kind of set the stage for you and how teams are formed and what to think about, especially in large and small companies. I work mostly with startups. And as a consultant, I'm brought into companies that need remediation or they're just starting out and none of them have experience typically. All right, so let's click through this thing. All right, this is typically, oh, by the way, I love football. This is typically what it feels like to be an RA and QA. You are seeing my slides, is that correct?
We are.
Yep. Design team is always on the offense. Regulatory quality is typically on the defense, which is not the way it really should happen. But here we go. All right, so Tuckman's 5-stage model of team development. I had never heard about this till I was on a 3M team with partnering with Eli Lilly to transfer drug products to Eli Lilly at a certain stage. And they presented this in a team getaway, which was really a great idea.
Ginger, how long have you been an independent consultant?
Now 9 years, which is crazy. I left
Immediately
in
before that, where
2015.
were you?
Immediately before that, 2008 to 2015, I was with 3M.
Oh,
I was with them from 2001 through 2006. And then I got recruited away and I got recruited back to help with a couple acquisitions that they made.
nice.
Um, yeah, so, but I was with 3 companies in the 90s in transplant drug, kidney transplant drug was my first, and then a biopharmaceutical oral drug. And both of those were monoclonal, polyclonal. And then I went into breast implants. So I've seen the horror stories in many different areas, the political FDA,
Hmm.
and each team has been different sizes. So we went into this area with Eli Lilly, forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. We bought a big team, they brought a big team, and I was regulatory for the 3M team. And we went through some of this. Now, today I'm going to talk about forming and storming. You will get to norming, but my presentation is based around forming and storming. And in thinking that, to be an effective team, right, you will go through the storming phase. Team formation. Come, be one of us. This makes a lot of people nervous. In big companies, you're just assigned because you're working for the company. You're going to work over on this team. Yay. In my role as a consultant, people contact me or not contact me. And I try to determine from, a very quick 1-minute call, 30-minute call, if they're going to be a fit. Sometimes I'm wrong. However, let's look at the keys to forming a team, right? Choose your members carefully. I was on a team about a year or two ago, and a girlfriend handed it off when she went to another company and suggested I work with this guy because we'd hit it off. And I thought we did at first, but after 3 months, no, it was not going to work. And I was like, I'm done. I can't work with you. It's early in the project. It's not going to work. There was no mutual respect or respectful communication. So it doesn't happen an awful lot, I should say. Because typically I tell people my background and say, look, I'm in it because I still like to do this. I like to learn the science, but choose every team member carefully. If you have a grudge as a QA or regulatory person, it's going to be tougher to integrate into an established team. So especially with design and quality regulatory, there's truly a lot of cross purposes, right? You have the QA person is like, it's black or it's white. The regulatory person's like, maybe. Anyway, be sure you're setting and communicating the team's common purpose. What is the purpose? Typically, in this role, getting past FDA, whether it's remediation, establishing a dialogue, or just getting the submission in, whether it's pre-sub, regular submission, a de novo, working on a breakthrough device right now, and as my main project. And we've been through the FDA process 3 times, which is recently with a couple pre-subs and the initial breakthrough, and there's a lot more to do. What's the common purpose? For your team, right? Choose reasonable goals. I have a client who's like, we're going to do and submit and be done in 2 months with the FDA. No, you're not. Or we're going to build and validate a huge new manufacturing plant in 9 months. Not likely, but I've heard great stories here on how people, in some of your companies here, designed and got through the FDA in 6 months. And I'm like, holy cow, I want to be on that team. Anyway, be sure you outline rules, responsibilities, and authority for each team member. So typically you're going to, this is what I see with QA, RA. People get roles and responsibilities. Authority is not really well defined, and it's not backed up by the senior management. So, all right. What in the world is going on there? We're going to stop that little puppy. Okay. So identify and assign an external referee, right? In addition to the vested project leader, which is often, that's often going to be the development team as well. Okay, I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, and if you really have a conflict, you're going to have to work it out.
Ginger,
sure.
Sorry, can you talk about this external referee a little bit and who it might be or how well it works and why it really isn't the regulatory person who's sitting at the table? Which is more,
sure. So if you're on a design team, often the regulatory will come in, but suppose you have a senior engineer leading a project, right? You set up a team and everybody, regulatory, quality, clinical, engineers are on that team. And the project leader typically is on the design team, sometimes not, but they're technically leading technical development. If they're really invested, there's an inherent bias for them to favor what the development team is saying, unless they've got, like us, white hairs. If you really have a conflict, in a larger company, I could go to my manager and say, I'm really having conflict with this team. They're just totally ignoring me. How can I work through this? There needs to be somebody, some ombudsman in my mind that somebody can go to. Maybe in a small company, it's top management because they're running the business and you can work through that. But consider having a referee. In a bigger company, it's easy. There's next level management to help you work through this.
So they're not on the team. They're external,
I
as you
think
called them.
I like them to be external so that they can be objective about what's going on in the team dynamics. And they're not in the day-to-day. It's kind of like having the independent reviewer in design controls. It's just something that I think is helpful.
Which, as a brief aside, I understand under QMSR, the independent reviewers disappearing.
Yeah, I think that's a really bad idea.
Me too.
I was just in a design review this past week where I ran it, a new company. We're in the developing stages and very, very small company. And I'm one of the team. And I'm like, okay, we've had this conflict. I'm like, this standard needs to be in your design inputs, right? This is a requirement.
Can I throw something in real fast on that?
Sure.
It has come to my attention in talking to people over the EU that this is more of an EU thing more than an American thing. I think we as quality professionals understand that independent reviewer on the team is good for catching things. It's a good stopgap to say, you know what, they'll think of things that we never thought of because we're a little too close to the problem.
You're too close to it. Exactly.
Right. So that works very well in the EU's mind. In the Europeans' mind, they're saying you put the people on the team that you feel are qualified to be on the team. They don't necessarily say that an independent reviewer is off the team. They're just saying that you decide who the people should be on the team, not necessarily calling out an independent reviewer or calling out anybody. They're just saying the qualified people on the team, excuse me, are the people that you should have on the team for a variety of reasons. But those are the people that know best. And in your opinion, you can put basically whoever you want on there. But by decodifying that doesn't mean that they're taking away your ability to do this or even suggesting that you shouldn't have an independent reviewer who doesn't have not necessarily no idea what's going on and just somebody that's just outside altogether. It's just someone who doesn't have direct responsibility for the work that's being done, just so that they can see the forest through the trees. So that's all I want to add.
No, and that's good. I would note that Europe does not require the ISO standard anyway. But that's a good point. Everybody but FDA and Europe require, globally, you have to have the ISO 134. But the independent reviewer, I totally agree with you. I would not get rid of them. Kind of like having the external review referee here. When we were on the call, they didn't put it in their document, and it's like letting your team get hung out to dry for FDA. The independent reviewer said, why isn't this standard in your requirements? And I said, thank you. Now it's in the requirements because the independent reviewer, who was a close friend of the development lead, questioned. And he's like, oh, Ginger's been saying that too. So I'm close enough in this company that now I'm internal and they're never going to pay attention to the internal person versus an external consultant, no matter how well I'm qualified, right? So I like it, and we'll get on to that. But similar to the referee, you're going to have weird dynamics, and you need somebody to rely on in that sense. Okay, so moving on. Okay, let me go here. And what are your criteria for selecting the person, right? As I've gotten older, I definitely have the white hair from the battle scars. I think I've gotten a little bit smarter in emotional intelligence, but we all lose it sometimes. So, and as you're selecting this team, how's the team going to operate? In person, remote, hybrid? Are you going to have a consultant be your QA or regulatory? Do they really have any authority in that role or not? And so things to consider. And then are there periodic celebrations of achieved milestones, even if it's a coffee and a donut? Here's the kicker for me, is everyone invited? Now, I worked in my last job for 3M's Digital Oral Care, and I had a business director I just didn't trust. We had a 50-person development team. We were working on scanners, and he'd say, we're going to do the scanner in 9 months and get it through the FDA. New scanner, new design. But by the way, we're not going to include regulatory quality or safety on the early development team. We're like, holy cow, that's not going to happen. The average review time, we're going to launch it in 9 months. I'm like, you're an idiot. But sorry, this is recorded. I know. I really had a conflict with this guy because he'd keep us out of the early meetings. And then 4 months in, we'd say, you have to meet these standards. This guy was an expert in CT in theory. So then he'd take the whole team out to a very nice dinner and theater in Minneapolis, but not invite regulatory quality or safety. I'm like, okay, thank you very much for that. This is going to be a continual battle. And eventually, I left the company for a number of reasons, but that was one of them. After 7 years of trying to be the good guy and work with him, I can't do this anymore. So it just comes down to what can you tolerate and what can you work. We made it work for a lot. I could work with the underlying design people. It was great. We bonded some really great relationships and we're still in touch. But be sure that you are making everybody feel valued here. And then last, how are you going to handle communications? Is it going to be frequent enough to be helpful? Is it going to be just enough to pretend you're communicating or not? And so, let's talk, is it email? Is it in person, etc.? So this is the thing I really want to get to in how you work together. What existing biases do we hold, So how do you overcome these, right? If you've had a really horrible experience with design and development, am I going to go into my next team thinking that, right? Same on the design set. Are they going to really have some very anal regulatory and quality people who just put the hammer down all the time? Do they respect the design and development function and its members? And then secondly, where you're big enough to have one of each, regulatory quality, do they respect each other? So I want to kind of give you an example of that, right? This is what I've seen in my career, how each function can get to the point of viewing themselves. And so you have to overcome some of these biases because these different types, D&D's thinks of them as the smart people. Regulatory thinks of them as the smart people. Quality think of themselves as the cop and hero of the day. How are you going to overcome these? We want to shift everybody's perception. All right, then you go the other way. When I first talked to Joe about doing a presentation, this is, D&D is just having a lot of fun. Nothing's getting done. They're not talking to anybody. They're not taking this seriously. Nobody wants to document anything. And I was, in fact, having an issue with why is nothing getting done? Yes, you're a remote client. They did get it done, but it was, I'd rather work on this. And so I'm not going to get this done. I'm like, you have a huge audit coming up. Don't make me hang you out to dry. Anyway, and then maybe our view of the D&D team is that they're very smart, but they won't document anything, right?
So you talk about changing the bias. How do you do that?
I think so. One-on-one meetings, I like a little teach and I'll summarize it at the end. So when I worked with the acquired CT scanner company, there was a lot of resistance with the team until we started flying down there, helping them work with their notified body to save the certificate, et cetera, and integrate them, come be one of us into 3M. And when we went out and fly down to Los Alamos or Boulder, just go out and share a bear with the guys, take hikes, in the parks or something like that. it really developed a great working relationship. We have one guy that genius finally realized, nobody at 3M's ever made a scanner. And he went through technology and did a lot of training, and even for his own internal team, some of the engineers he hired on didn't really get the common goal. And so we do really funny videos. He would love to teach us. We'd love to teach them a little bit, and it was productive discussions. So I want to move from this to this. I do respect the abilities and the intelligence of some of these guys that are just geniuses. But what I do see from communication skills is that they don't want to communicate or write anything down most often, whether they are shy to. When they do actually do it, it's amazing. I've sat with engineers validating an HVAC system, help me understand this, taking notes from them. And then when they're like, wow, did I really? Okay, I've done everything from being their secretary and writing the procedures to having them take a stab and then showing them the expectations. Okay. All right, here's D&D's view of regulatory quality, right?
First,
don't have the scientific.
Ginger.
These, pardon me?
Nelly had her hand raised first.
Yeah, I just want to say that this is an excellent topic, because like right now I'm working with 6 clients, and like I call it the 80-20 rule. 80% of the clients, they function quite nicely and it's not a problem. It's the 20% that takes up most of your energy. So I have one client, it's like, if it's not in the standard, I'm not going to do it. And that's why I'm very disheartened about them removing the independent reviewer, because as you said, the independent reviewer is a voice that sometimes catches things, because when you're in the woods, you don't see everything all the time. And so it's always a safety gate. And then I have another client that's hired all non-med device people, engineering and software development. And now they're like, I want to get my 510K submitted by the end of the year. And I'm just like,
good luck with that.
Like, I had a software engineer literally send me a 30-page software development plan, and then half of it's a procedure. And so when you're talking about developing the team, one of the things I coach is like, you really need that med device leader. If you're trying to be innovative and you're bringing in technical people who are being innovative, you need at least one person who's had med device experience that can lead them. Otherwise, you're just floundering, because like I'm trying to communicate and my communications are going on deaf ears. Nobody's responding. So I'm really right now trying to work very hard on establishing a norming stage, and it's very difficult. So I think this is great.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad to hear that. And that's sad, right? So you work in a big conglomerate like 3M. Thankfully, they sold many divisions while I was there. My husband's division in drug delivery got sold, and he eventually retired. The rest of healthcare is going now. They love to swap executives from Post-it notes division into healthcare, and then that leads to senior management having unacceptable expectations about deadlines and turning things around. It's crazy. And so, having the right people leading the company, setting the top from the management is something that's really critical. But whether they're the external referee. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Also the board members, because I have a client that has a full board member that has no med device, and they're like, this is too many DCOs. This should have been done faster. It's like, this is the requirements per the law. And I fight with that all the time. It's like, okay, but it's like, you're saying it's got to be board members and team members that understand med device.
Yeah, they do. So this is the role, right? This is how I often see D&D look at quality and regulatory. Sure, go ahead.
I saw that Luke and David had their hands up.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Yes,
yeah, that's okay.
I'm such a D&D person, but then without green brains, I guess.
No.
No, but it's about documenting. I think a lot of engineers really would like to document what they're doing, but when there's a big project, there's a budget for it, and usually the one who assigns the budget wants it to be as small as possible.
Of course.
And we want to have a big budget to do the things we like to do. So that's always a collision where the budget gets shrunken a little bit, what's really needed. So there is not enough time to do everything. And then the engineers always have a choice. Do I make the right product for my customer, or do I make a lousy product and document it well?
Yeah.
And you can always imagine what the choice will end up. They will try to make a good product, and the documentation then always fails. But it's not like, and it's not like they don't want to, but because usually when a project is short on time and budget,
right,
in the beginning there's not enough documentation. The requirements are not set up really good. They're not the proof of principle phase is too short, and they dive into the final product right away. So even there, the documentation is lacking just in the beginning. But it's not like that you as an engineer don't want to document.
Well, I have run into that. I have run into many that don't, or they're afraid they're going to be judged or whatever. But yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was waving a good weekend to my colleague. No, it's no, it's okay. Yeah. It's a great presentation. You answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Luke, I thought you were raising your hand that you're one of those guys who doesn't like to document. So thanks for the clarification there, waving to your friend. I just wanted to comment. I worked for a company, actually Twin Cities based, that we had facility in the Twin Cities, in another American state, and in Europe. And we set up internal audits that the 3 members from RA would go to these 3 sites and audit our colleagues. So at some point, I was talking to my Minnesota-based boss, and I said, we need a global conference. Let's get some engineers from everywhere, and RA and some QA. And he said, fine, Dave, good idea. Why don't you talk about validation? And I said, oh, no, I won't do that topic. Give it to Rick. I see Rick's name there. I'd like him to present it, and I'll participate. And as he was doing his validation presentation, the senior engineers behind me, and I hear him go, what the hell changed? We don't do it this way. And I said, well, that's the problem. And then my boss jumps up and goes, that's the problem. You guys need to all, we need to follow the guidances. We need to follow standards. We need to do this and document it. But it was just interesting to hear a senior engineer at this corporation say, what changed? We haven't done it like this forever. Well, this is the way you got to. But that's all I wanted to comment. Thanks.
Okay. Rick, you have something quick or no?
Yeah. It was something you were saying that was really just amazing. And that whole idea of having respect. And the third thing is everybody goes, well, what if I really don't respect some other discipline nearly as much as they think I should? Because that's almost always true. I've worked with electrical engineers who don't really respect mechanical engineering and things like that. It's always true. But the best ones were the ones that maybe they didn't respect somebody else as much as maybe they should have, but they learned and behave as if they did, and they just kept on doing that. And that is, I mean, that's it sounds like if you're depressed, stop acting depressed, but it really actually does work. And the other solution for some of this is that when it comes to documentation, 2 of the most wonderful solutions in the world are number 1, tech writers, because they usually don't book the same charges that we do, plus junior level engineers. And probably the best thing I like about what you were saying this whole topic is that I spend a lot of time listening to you guys, because that gives me sort of a roadmap of which branch of the river to take and which one goes to a bunch of waterfalls that's going to lead, that would be equivalent to, say, having to do a re-audit or a reassessment of the product. It's not that I would guide a customer to try and avoid it the same way Boeing tried to avoid scrutiny on their, on their latest debacle. But honestly, designing something so that it doesn't trigger a complete reevaluation, so that you can use what you actually have. Again, not sneaking in a piece of deceptive software, but actually, doing it. But this is just, I love the stuff that you're saying as a designer.
Thank you. Well, thank you. And we'll go through a little bit more, and just a quick note on the whole Boeing thing. 3M, I joined 3M a year after Jim McNerney was CEO. Right? I call it the smoke and mirrors. You'll see me rail on this on LinkedIn. He destroyed 3M's R&D department. It was all about P by E, right? Quarterly profits. how could Jim McNerney be Jim McNerney? And then we, had a different CEO. But essentially, it does not surprise me when he went to Boeing that Boeing went down the tubes thing. The same. So, but I'll move on in my own presentation. It's very sad from a safety perspective, but that was the beginning of the end of what's happened with RAM in my mind. Okay, so let me go down here to the next slide. All right, come on. All right, so here's...
Go ahead and share your slides again. I had temporarily removed them so we could see the gallery of folks.
Oh, okay. So can you see the slides now?
Not right now, no. Go ahead and do it at the beginning.
Great, okay.
Frankly, this was just driving me nuts watching this for too long.
That's okay. So it should be sharing now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. This is what RA, often I see RA think of QA, well, they're just, or other people's impressions. The QA is a little version of me. And really, it needs to go to be equal partnerships. Now, in some cases, where people say this presentation doesn't reflect my management's view, I am the management of my own company, so this is my view. And I am RA and QA for many companies. Anyway, we're partners in this. Let's be partners. Some of what I see is regulatory shopping. Well, the QA person said I didn't have to do this, or a design engineer were telling me that. And I'd say, well, QA doesn't know RA. We should educate each other as well and get mutual respect across this. QA's view of RA, or if you want to extend it to legal, is the big elephant in the room. I can't get past the regulatory person. And again, we would like to be partners. Now, this is where I'd like to get. So I fight myself in my head when I serve both functions. And I've come up with a term, which I think I'm going to trademark, called pranal, practically anal. Now, the regulatory person needs to be practical, right? We get to be the depends person. It depends. But let's be practical about the controls we're going to put on design team. Let's communicate. Let's find the best way. We're all about patient safety, getting to market quick as we can, but it's about safety and effectiveness. All right, so for your set and communicate a common purpose for the team, as I said, specific goals, tasks, roles, responsibilities, and authorities must be agreed upon by the team. Have a, quote, come to Jesus meeting, a team meeting, a kickoff meeting. Management can say this is the goals of purpose, right? But you better have some negotiations and feel like your team is bonding early. All right. And then I'm going to stop sharing for a second while I pull this up. Imagine, if you will, you are the project manager or team leader watching this event. All right. So now I'm going to pull up my other event. And just because again, my sixth sense of humor wants to show this little slide all the time, and something that I really enjoy. I'm gonna have to pull it up from here. Okay, now I need to go back to my meeting and share this one. Oh, come here, Joe. Come here, Joe. Get up on my meetings. Nothing. I'm just being weird. Sorry. I'm trying to get back into this so I can share this screen. Okay.
Joe's going, I'm gonna have to cut this from the presentation. How bad is it?
No, it's quite funny, actually. You're the project manager. Here you are. Here's your project, because nobody is communicating.
What movie is that from?
Pardon me?
What movie was that from?
That is from State and Maine. It's a very, very funny movie with Bill Macy, Alec Baldwin, and Philip Seymour Hoffman. And I think you'd like it. It's about movie producers trying to make this very low budget movie, and everything goes wrong. So the longer movie, but this is just a hysterical part of the movie that I always think of in project management. You will have the storming train wreck at some point, and so don't be surprised. What can you best do to try to, I don't know, minimize that, right? Okay, so go ahead. Yep.
I guess I need to throw this out to the group because I guess I'm at that age where I've done certain things and I wonder if everybody else does this or if anybody's ever done this. But how many people have actually sat and put together a project charter before starting an actual project to lay out all the rules, responsibilities, the tasks, the roles, the goals, the referees, all the people on the team? Is this sort of a is it a best practice? Is it a common practice? Am I the only one that's ever seen this out there? I'm just wondering what everybody else's ideas are on that. Have they used that, and what the outcome has been by using it or not using it?
Mm-hmm. We had to do this in Six Sigma, which, it does give you a great process-based thing, but and you were mandated to do 2 Six Sigma projects a year under Jim McNerney. But yeah, project charter team, everybody gets together, but I haven't done it for design and development teams as much.
Has anybody else on the team ever done that? Yeah, Luke.
Or it's part of our project plan template to fill it in, all these responsibilities, and so it's structured. It's part of the QMS.
Nobody else? Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting because I worked at a place that had a very tough time with the FDA because they really weren't doing things in a quality or a common sense way. And it was until their quality manager, who was doing a very good job of putting process systems into place, got over to a PMO role and started taking on the large projects that Six Sigma normally does. Mm-hmm. And so we, from now on, are going to be putting in project charters that are going to explain everything, that are going to talk about the different places that are going to be under this project, who's in charge, who's the management that we go to, who in upper management has responsibilities for making decisions, who's the referee we throw the jump ball up to in case there is a disagreement among the equal team members. All of that stuff was all laid out ahead of time with the roles and responsibilities, and it set things in motion so that when we had issues, we had a roadmap that told us everything that we needed to know, and it just made it that much easier to get through because everybody signed off on it. It was an agreement. It was a contract between all the principals. And I was just wondering, is this in your, when I say you, I mean euphemistically you, everybody on the team on the call here today, does anybody do this sort of thing anymore, or is this kind of old hat and there's something else that took its place that I'm not aware of?
No, I think that's a problem.
I guess. Okay.
I think this is why we have so many conflicts. So let me move on. Yeah, I can see time short, but I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. So yeah, I'm going to go to the next slide. All right, the crash is what I just showed you. Now, again, I've said this is going to happen. Yes, I'm visual. I love GIFs. Anyway.
Like why you just settled the GIF versus GIF debate.
Well, I don't know. Some people like to say it one way or the other. This is what regulatory often feels like. So I know the team feels this pressure from management, right? It never stops. So, and this is personal dynamics pressure as well. Haven't you honestly wanted to do this to a team member at some point, right?
Well, that's
honestly
violent.
It's quite violent. Sometimes I go out. When I was on a recent team in this employer, I was very fit. I'd go down to the company gym and run 5 miles before I went to the team meeting because I knew. And then I was so exhausted, I didn't care. That was on my last year. I was like, I have to leave. I have to leave. But I know we all get to this point, so let's talk about, how you get to the level of respect and communication so you don't do this in a very public meeting. So handling the storm, right? Don't wait for a miracle to rescue the team. Somebody can hopefully, hopefully the team is going to overcome its own folly. So this again is one of my favorite movies. Having horses. I love the horse scene. If you haven't seen True Lies, right? Somebody's got to have common sense. In this case, it was the horse. He's like, let's jump off this building and follow that motorcycle into the pool so I can catch the guy. Yeah, horse said, I don't think so. So there was a team disagreement, but calmer heads did prevail. And I would have played this, but it was like 2 minutes, so no. Love this scene. Tips. All right, so we've talked about it a lot, right? Tips and technique. Project team leader needs to step up and demonstrate the need to communicate and be respectful. Hold consistent, inclusive meetings and be transparent. Discourage whispers and regulatory equality shopping. So sometimes this is pitting RA versus QA. Sometimes I get team members that say, I came from, I came from Medtronic or GE or whatever, and we did it this way. Or, sorry, Joe, my marketing guy says that we don't have to do this because it's not regulated. Okay, you're hiring your SMEs for a purpose. They're supposed to be qualified. If you're not going to trust them from the get-go, you're going to have a major problem. So, have a discussion about who you're putting on the team. And if you hire them, use them, right? I do a lot of technical writing for teams that they want to have me there all the time and available. They do or don't have the time to write. They don't like to write. As I say, I've taken notes from engineers. I dictate, let me help you write your SOPs. I had a division where one company did all the fabulous software validation work, didn't document it. The other ancillary companion software did all the work and documented it, didn't have any software SOPs required or processes in place written down. They were doing it. And so they were getting hit on two sides. And we had to remediate things there, but let me help you. Anyway, we're there for a reason. Sometimes, I get deep into the risk management because nobody wants to create the spreadsheets or whatever you have to do. Yep. Was there a question, comment?
No.
Okay. Celebrate, communicate both the small and the large in each functional area. Free think coffee. Let's just go get a coffee. It's cheap. We're not talking a $10 cappuccino, and teach each other, right? Take the team to a park for lunch. Bring your brown bag if you have no budget. Hand out awards for creative negotiations within the team. And when you really need to engage the referee or reassign members, if it's truly not going to work, people can't get over the hump, do not keep them on your team because they're going to be a downer. Some differences cannot be reconciled. Okay, so here's one of the last ones. Ginger's Revenge. We were down visiting a college chum in Charlotte. We went up to Asheville and visited all of their little breweries, did a brewery tour, which was fabulous last summer. And we never did go into this one because we'd had a little too much already by that point. But remember that it's about patient safety. Again, I walked away from a client that was really going to be fun because there was too much, the dynamics was just not going to work. I think technology was fabulous. It's going to be innovative. I walked away. But if I'm on a design and development team, just, heads up as regulatory quality, if you're shortcutting product safety, and I know this is going to put patients at risk, I'm going to walk away. And there's the whistleblower option, the fear of God, right? Don't make me whistleblow. So when I saw this brewery from a distance, I'm like, I'm Scottish. I have horses. My family was Scottish. And if you've seen Braveheart, the Scottish Braveheart clan, the Campbell clan, which is what I'm from, rode horses into people's bedrooms in the middle of the night and attacked them. So Ginger's revenge seems appropriate. But next time I go back to Asheville, I'm going to go ahead and check in at this bar just for the fun of it. 10 habits to avoid: communicating poorly, late, incomplete, or not. Over communicating. This is for the QA people. Okay, I've had to dial this back myself. You don't need to know everything now. You don't have time to process it all. I like to do it in dribs and drabs. And then when you hear it for the fourth time, if you're like me, oh, okay, right? So figure out when you're going to really start integrating. Be practical, practically anal. Don't emphasize the failures versus accomplishments, right? You're positioning as, hey, this was really great, but could you? Don't do that too many times as well, right? Let's go with some accomplishments first. Don't swim in somebody else's lane. Again, you've hired SMEs. Let them take the lead. I love input and second eyeballs on what I do. That doesn't mean that every time I throw something out to you, you rewrite it because this is how you wrote it at your last company. I've been through FDA inspections, notified body inspections. This is what I know they're going to look for. I am an auditor myself to the MDR, the MDSAP, ISO, FDA. I have a great idea of what auditors are going to look for and how to tell the story, but I want it done safely. Don't blame other team members. My dad was a World War II vet. You know what? I'm very socially liberal. I'm very fiscally responsible. Take responsibility for your actions. Don't blame others. Maybe others took actions you didn't like because you didn't communicate, right? Don't pass the buck. Don't make hasty decisions or be indecisive. I had one project leader I worked with in one of my first companies that we're going to do it this way. Everyone runs there. We're going to do it that way. No, wait, can't make up my mind. That's just frustrating. Follow through on your commitments. If you can't do it, don't at the last minute say, oh, by the way, just kidding. Don't procrastinate. I procrastinated making these slides because I had all sorts of ideas on how I wanted to do this. And again, focusing on the weeds. I had recently had somebody got through this huge program and then they're like, there's a typo on this. Okay, does that matter? Is content adequate? Are you headed in the right direction? Don't go there. This is so low on the Pareto chart. Don't do it. That's just going to make somebody mad. Right? So hopefully establishing your ground rules, the sharing environment, timely communications between the design, regulatory quality is key in my mind. And so hopefully we're going to get to this stage sooner rather than later. You're going to have less storming and really try to be highly productive. That's all I got. And, we've had some discussion how you resolve conflict. Have you gotten some better ideas or anything I haven't covered here?
Michelle? We can't see you, by the way.
Yeah, yes. Because my house has been painted today. So I try not to. I do have a question for Ginger. I know the FDA just dropped the final decision on the ISO 13485.
Yep.
And then it sort of will be enforced or be required by February of 2026.
Yep.
So my question is, might be just lack of experience. My work experience with the manufacturers I work with are the ones I know of. They all have, in the old days, they all have ISO 9001, and then it become ISO 13485, and also they have the ISO 14971. So of course they are FDA registered and listing and all that, and they follow the CFR Title 21 Part 820 for the QMS. So is it this ISO 13485 decided by FDA is more of a thing for the US manufacturers? Because for the manufacturers I work with, they all are ISO 13485 certified.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the question? Yeah, no, FDA's finally come around to.
Right. So the question is that is this only kind of like for the US manufacturers or what? Because in Europe,
it's for all manufacturers. They're saying we're going to expect you to conform to 13485.
Yeah, but most manufacturers already have that.
I know it. And this is navel gazing, in my opinion, by regulatory and quality in the US. Can't possibly meet that. I'm like, they're already 95% aligned.
Right.
I set my clients up in the ISO standard because typically I have a client that says, oh, we want to go to Singapore. I'm like, well, let's not just base your quality system on QMS. I know this from the beginning. I set them up that way and I add in FDA stuff for most clients.
Hey, Michelle, can I jump in real fast and
yes,
help you with this? And I understand a couple of years ago, FDA reached out to industry people. I was one of them that was actually there sitting with the FDA while we were going through the new 21 CFR 820, and they were talking about aligning. This is really because the FDA wanted some way of being able to tie this to Europe, so it was a lot easier for the FDA to say, okay, we're equal to the EU, because it used to be it was easier to get stuff into the EU through the MDD than it was with the FDA. When the MDR came through, now they're still learning what's going on. They're asking for a lot of things, and it's tougher to get stuff into the EU, or it's tougher to get stuff through the FDA than it is the EU. The FDA saying, listen, there's got to be some sort of counterbalance to this here where we're all doing. I understand what you're saying about people coming up to speed, but this is an awful lot of manufacturers who are small manufacturers, are only selling in the United States, are not selling overseas. And the whole idea of being 2-year compliant, you can thank me for it, because I actually sent something to the FDA because they wanted 1 year compliance. And I said, there's no way in hell that it's going to happen in 1 year. You've got to give them at least 2, maybe 3 years for everybody to come up to speed, which we're only talking about the companies who were not conversant with 13485 and had no idea what was going on. They were fully just building manufacturing things strictly for the United States under 820. So by combining all of this and trying to harmonize this, they're just saying that if you do want to open up, then you're at least conversant in 1345. It does cover most of the same things. It actually includes a lot of things that are similar, because I always had cross references between 820 and 1345 in an audit sheet myself anyway. There's very little difference between the two. There were some things that you had to do in the 1345 that you didn't under 820, and now there's some things in 820 that you're doing that aren't really in 1345. We're moving a little bit closer because the FDA understands that this is much more of a globalization, because most of the companies are already selling overseas. So this is really for the last 10%, 15% of the companies in the United States that may want to sell globally. They don't have to, obviously, but it puts everything under one standard that's easily understood, and the FDA doesn't have to keep getting together. So there's a little politics in there too. It's less of them having to get together and having to decide these arduous issues of, independent reviewer and definitions and things like that. They put it all on 1345 and say, hey, there's already a commission doing this. So there's a bit of political laziness, and there's a little more of a need to want to harmonize, because we in the industry have been complaining about this for the longest time. Yeah. Why not just go ahead and do it, kind of a thing?
And again, just note that just like 820, FDA would never certify you as being compliant with 820, right? And they're not requiring that you certify to 13485. They do expect you to conform to that. Europe does not require 13485 either, but that is where the MDR is aligned.
I'll tell you this too, really quickly. I do audits of customers. A customer actually said that they had a big client of theirs, a large multinational company, come to them because they're a CMO. So I was doing the audit readiness for the CMO, and they said that they were out of compliance, and there was a problem with the internal auditor, me, not having an ISO 1345 lead auditor certification. So you can have 30 years of experience like I have. You can be a CQA certified from
unless you pay your fee and have the piece of paper.
So now you have to have a new certification that seems to be going around. You now have to be an ISO 1345 certified lead auditor. Otherwise, you're not a good enough auditor to be doing the things for this.
There's
right here.
Good money in selling pieces of paper and
PDF. I do have a disagreement with that.
We've run over today. I do want to conclude with 3 things. or four, now that Michelle's raised her hand. First, we haven't seen Joanna in a really long time. She's calling in from Poland, and I wanted her to reintroduce herself to the group.
Great.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yes, I work in the medical company since 3 years. I work in the regulatory affairs teams, but work quite close with R&D, design and development teams regarding the new product introduction, also the product maintenance and changes in the design team, and how to communicate with regulators. And also I'm part of the team who prepared the FDA submission. So that's more of the company which I work for. We are preparing software and also hardware devices for ECG signal analysis.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Great to meet you. Great
Thank
to
you.
meet you.
Great to hear you also and meet you all.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joe, for letting me host. I was apprehensive because I don't do this very often and I have performance anxiety, but as I say, take my little abnormal brain. I did not put that up there on these slides. And just 30 years of trying to not be the Hulk with teams.
Well, thank you for powering through your performance anxiety.
Yeah.
The other two things I wanted to do, well, one of them just dropped off, so I'm not going to do that. But I wanted to ask Mark how your clean room software project is going.
Oh, interestingly, we have 2 new customers pre-orders for our software. We've gotten through an alpha version of it, so it's something that I can actually pull up and show potential customers, anybody. I've got an iPad mini. We can actually upload a fairly working copy of the software. We're still looking for investors to help us get over the hump and get us to the beta version so we can validate and actually put it out there, and then have some marketing so that we can get it out to the shows like 10X and some of the other fine shows around the United States and the world to show people that we've got something
to shake your hand and know that you're on the bubble, but I hope it works out that we get to meet.
Me too. We've heard from many people that since this is the first of a kind thing, that once we've got it made, we've actually got the product in hand, we can actually put it in people's hands, let them beta test this, get us their feedback, we can actually work this around and start showing people, marketing this out there. There's a world of QAs out there who are just dying to get off the paper and get into something that's got the data analytics, give them the information they need to be able to make good quality decisions for their company. And this is helping get rid of the paper, the pen, the ink, the toner, and so forth. So we're very excited. We're real close. Like anything, money would help. But we've got 2 paying customers, which actually looks good. So we are actually post revenue at this point in time.
Good.
So
we hadn't heard.
Thank you for asking.
The development. I was curious. I'm sure others were too. So congratulations on that. We ran nicely over today due to group interest. So thank you, Ginger. You overcame your performance anxiety with flying colors. And I'll see you next week. Charlie Tate will be our featured presenter. See you next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.